One very scary thing about Nintendo is that if they make one wrong move and release a game that's hated by fans, then that can upset their future plans and really hurt the company. This unfortunately can go as far as affecting franchises, something we've actually seen a few times over the years, as one really bad decision can result in their literal death. However, there are already several videos on YouTube about ones that are already dead. So, instead, I got the idea of looking at specific ones that are currently dying out before our very eyes. I won't only include main series, but sub-series as well, going in depth to why certain ones are failing, and maybe even go as far as suggesting what Nintendo can do to revive them. Oh yeah, before I get started, my name is Copycat, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel, and hit that bell button to stay notified when I upload new videos. One franchise that's incredibly popular but has been really struggling over the last few decades is Donkey Kong, which is quite upsetting to me as it's basically the name that put Nintendo on the map, and the Country series is one of my favorite of all time. Technically, the last game released is the Tropical Freeze entry for the Nintendo Switch in 2018, although that was a port of the 2014 Wii U version, meaning it's been almost 8 years since a new game came out. This is a bit confusing to me, as it's not like people don't want to play the series, 2D or 3D, making me think that Nintendo might be scared to create a failure. I guess the disillusion and eventual acquisition of Rare by Microsoft, the original developers, really messed up the bright future this franchise could have had, but hopefully Retro Studios are on the right track of putting things back in place. I also have heard rumors of a 3D entry being created by the same team who made Super Mario Odyssey, so if that's actually true, then there might be hope after all. Next up, I want to look at the Metroid franchise. Not the 2D platforming games, but the 3D Metroid Prime series, as we've been promised a new entry for quite some time, and nothing has ever been fulfilled. Ever since it was teased as being in development at the end of 2017, fans were excited to see what this new entry would look like on the much more powerful Nintendo Switch, especially as that series' third entry came out on the Wii in 2007, and the somewhat related but absolute failure of Other M came out in 2010. Announcing a game that's in development with absolutely no product to show is extremely out of character for Nintendo, as this is a practice they pretty much never do, so when I initially saw this, I was worried from the start. Well, my suspicions were correct, as once no new info came out for 2 years, it was finally revealed that Bandai Namco, who was trying to develop the game, was dropped because it wasn't good enough. Apparently now Retro Studios are at the helm and development is ongoing, so let's just see, maybe in 2 to 3 years we might get a trailer, or maybe we'll just get our hopes blown up again. Up next, we're going to look at a Super Mario character that actually has a couple of sub-franchises that are failing in the strange anti-hero, Wario. Now, I can't technically say that the WarioWare series is dying, as they did just come out with the newest Get It Together entry, but I can at least say that many people seem to be losing interest, as it didn't sell too well. I really think that Nintendo should instead focus their attention back on the Wario Land series, as a 2D or 3D game hasn't been made since the Shake It Wii title. Whatever they decide to go with, I think that the Switch is popular enough to support one of those as a new platforming game, even if it's directed towards a niche audience. Maybe even adding Waluigi to change things up a bit, and not holding back with the outlandish, silly gameplay would help. If there's one franchise that's literally dying out right in front of our very eyes, that would have to be the rail shoot-'em-up Star Fox series, as the last entry was universally hated by essentially everyone who played it. That was Star Fox Zero for the Wii U, released in 2016, which really awkwardly tried to implement the system's gamepad into the gameplay that just didn't work for many reasons. One of them is that the controls were very counterintuitive, as the small screen on the gamepad was used to aim and shoot at other ships, while you also had to look at the main screen on the TV to guide your ship where you want to go. Honestly, I'm not even sure if this was the deciding factor and whether or not this was a good or bad game, but definitely the poor sales of the Wii U caused no one to rush out to get this one, including me, who actually bought many games for the console. In all honesty, one title isn't enough to bring down an entire franchise by itself. And Star Fox has become increasingly stale over the past decade, where fans just know what to expect and would rather play a much fresher experience. I think that there's a possibility for a comeback if they play their cards right and just create an overall enjoyable entry, but I can't see this happening in the foreseeable future, as one more bad entry could destroy everything. One niche franchise that seems like it could be done for good is Mario and Sonic's Olympic Games entries. And I say this only because they missed out on releasing one for the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. I think a combination of the pandemic and the games being held in China made Nintendo second guess whether or not releasing an entry was worth it. Honestly, I think they made the right decision, as this Olympics was one of the least viewed of all time. And if they did release a version, it could have easily been lost to obscurity. In the future, if they do decide to come out with these types of games, I think it would be a better idea just to stick with a general sports-based minigame entry, and drop the Olympic name, as let's be honest, there's just some events that are straight up boring. Next up, we're gonna look at a Nintendo product, and not a franchise, a Nintendo Labo, which was meant to be a series of add-on cardboard peripherals that allowed you to do some very interesting things with your Switch. On paper, this is definitely a good idea, but in reality, the kits you had to buy were too expensive and a bit too intricate for kids in my opinion. Even if these cardboard creations are kind of interesting, they ended up breaking apart way too easily, as I dropped my piano once by accident and the keys got all messed up, which is an enormous downside. I will applaud Nintendo for trying something new and thinking way outside the box, but in the end, there was only slight love for this product, and I don't think one will ever be made again. Although the next franchise we're gonna look at isn't exactly dying, from a personal standpoint, I really can't see where else the Yoshi series could go, as it seems to have run its course, and anything else would be repetitive. Now, I'm not dissing Crafted World, as I did play that game and even fully beat it, but my main complaint with it all has to do with something Nintendo struggles with from time to time: difficulty. Yoshi games are just straight up way too easy, and this lack of a challenge ends up making the gameplay boring, to the point where I really don't think a single level ever gave me trouble. Now, I can't say that this will absolutely kill the franchise, as Nintendo may not necessarily care about difficulty like I do. It may just want to use the Yoshi games as titles that are oriented towards a much younger audience. This is completely fine in my opinion, as long as that's how they market it, and at least think a bit about older players. One franchise that was once uber popular but seems to have either been forgotten or killed by Nintendo is Nintendogs, which was a pet simulator originating on the DS portable consoles. The original entry ended up being the second best selling of that system, shilling out around 24 million copies, spawning many spin-off titles that ended up doing relatively well in the grand scheme of things. The very last entry in the series was in 2011 with Nintendogs plus Cats on the 3DS that sold better than I expected at 1.71 million units. With pretty decent numbers like this, I'm actually surprised Nintendo has never made another game in the series, as for a cheaper price, I think fans would want to at least try this title out. They could also go the mobile route, which gives them a lot more options with the touchscreen, and could make the game free with microtransactions, which although risky, could make them big bucks. The final thing we're going to look at in this video isn't a singular franchise, but a type of entry that seems to have basically disappeared in recent years in pinball games. If you grew up in the late 90s or early 2000s like I did, then you're probably quite aware about how many companies tried to make their own virtual versions of this game cabinet on the Nintendo system. None of which really ever caught my interest, as they were just way too simple and similar. Nowadays, entries involving simple mechanics like this one would be found for free on mobile devices, or for a cheap price on the Nintendo Switch eShop. And honestly, thinking back in the day, I can't believe people used to pay full price for an honestly boring experience. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, please leave a like, comment below what you thought about it, and of course subscribe to my channel. Also, please go follow my Instagram at Copycat Gamer. There I upload some cool clips and items from my collection that you won't see anywhere else. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!